Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. I thought it would be fun today to take you behind the scenes and show you how I design a project. And this is a class I will be teaching for free live over on Michael's Zoom channel. You can sign up. It's going to be March 15th, 2024. I'll leave a link in the video description. It is free and open to residents of the USA and Canada. And there will be a replay afterwards for everyone else. So don't worry, you will have a chance to do this project for free with me, whether live or in a replay. And again, I'll put all that information in the video description. I'm starting off by sketching this with my set of 12 Derwent Lightfast pencils. Now, the reason I'm using a small set is because these pencils are expensive, and I know that if you're not sure what you really like for colored pencils, you don't want to go and buy a really big set. That could be a costly mistake if it turns out you don't like the pencils. Something that I did before buying a big set is I would go and just buy a few pencils open stock to see what I think. Now, it can be harder and harder to find open stock pencils, especially in local art stores. So when the Derwent Lightfast came out, I actually found a set of 12 in my local big box store, and I had a coupon and I went ahead and picked it up. And then I did quite a few little paintings and drawings with them before I decided that I wanted to get more in the range. And then I just waited for a sale. So I think that's a really excellent way to do it. But you may be thinking, what can I really paint with 12 colors? And I'll tell you what, you can do quite a bit. Now, I'm going to go over the pros and cons of this method of working, and hopefully it'll give you some inspiration and some confidence to try it for yourself. And also, hopefully it will take the pressure off for you feeling that you have to buy a huge set when you're not really sure if you like a project or not, or a product or not. So for this first version of the tomato, I decided to work on a piece of mat board that I had gessoed with Liquitex clear gesso. So, probably about a year ago, I dug out a bunch of my mat board scraps that I had left over from picture framing, and I just gessoed them. So I'd always have these panels ready to go. And I really like color pencil on these panels because it really grabs a lot of color, so you can build up color very quickly. But then I was kind of concerned that I wasn't getting a lot of contrast on this, and I didn't know how well this project would look on Zoom. We do our Michael's classes on Zoom, and sometimes there's a struggle with quality on that platform, so I wanted to make sure it was going to be something that was going to show up really well. And also, I didn't know how much the average person was going to want to have to go and prime a piece of paper or mat board for this purpose. So I thought it might be kind of a difficult supply to get their hands on. So that's why we end up doing it in white as well. But this was kind of a fun experiment nonetheless, and I do highly recommend, if you love working in colored pencils and pastels, to pick up a small jar of Liquitex clear gesso. It's got this nice grit to it. It's almost sandy feeling once it's dried on your paper, and it allows you to use so many mediums, even on inexpensive paper, like any sort of like watercolor paper or even cardstock or cardboard, anything like that. You can really turn it into a lovely art surface. Now, keep in mind, whatever you're using for your paper, try to make sure it's acid-free. Cardboard obviously wouldn't be, but you want to have something that's going to work well. But the neat thing about using this Liquitex clear gesso surface is that, I don't know if you caught it a second ago, I used a makeup sponge and I was able to spread the color around. It makes it almost like a powdery and pastelish. So you can just kind of blend it and move it around and fill the tooth really easily of the paper. So that would be one of my first tips if you're working with a limited palette like this, is to get a kind of sandy surface. And I think the most affordable way to do that is just to buy a small jar of the Liquitex clear gesso. I've tried other brands, and Liquitex is the only one that seems to have that good grit to it. If you have a recommendation, feel free to leave it in the comments. I've tried a few different brands, and I haven't found them to have the grit. Now, something I've noticed that when I'm working with a limited supply, you really got to take advantage of all those colors. Now, generally, I won't use black right away in a picture. I'll kind of save it to the end. But with a limited palette like this, you kind of have to pull it in a little bit earlier for your really dark values, it seems. And I will say the Derwent Lightfast set of 12, it is more of a bespoke palette. Like, it doesn't have a super bright blue. It's got that kind of a mid ultramarine, which is almost, it's got white in it. It does have a pretty violet, and it's got a green, and you can mix and get your values, but it's not super vibrant colors for some of them. And I think the reason of this is the Lightfast range, all the colors are Lightfast, and there's certain colors that are just very difficult and expensive to do in in a light fast formula. They do have brighter blues and earthy greens and stuff in the larger sets and open stock, but we're just going to talk about an easy to find small set and getting it to do what you want it to do. So what you're going to do a lot when you're working with a limited set is you're going to do a lot of layering, and that's just coloring over a color with another color until you get the color that you want. So you're going for a couple things. You're going for the right color, the right shade, and you're also going for the right value, which means the lightness or darkness of the color. And I also wondered that maybe this toned surface would be confusing for folks, or if they didn't have that colored surface and were working on white, that would be tough. So that's another reason I decided to do the project for the Michaels class in white. But I had filmed this and I thought it was kind of interesting, so I thought I would share it as well. I want to talk about some other pros to using a limited palette. Probably the best pro to using a limited selection of supplies like this is that it's cheaper. Now, even if you don't buy this set of 12, you could easily go to any store that sells open stock pencils, and you could choose, very versatile colors. Your bright red, bright blue, bright yellow, bright green, then maybe an earthy green, and then maybe like a few browns, or a brown and a black and a white. You could get a really nice variety, and especially choose the colors that you're going to use. But since you're not buying 100 of these colors, it's going to be much better for your budget, even if you end up spending a little bit more per pencil than you would in a big set. You also learn to be really intentional, and you learn how to layer and mix color. You don't want to put down the wrong color because it's going to be really hard to affect it and change it. So if you want this really dark red shade, you're going to need some red. You probably need some purple, maybe a little bit of black. You're going to really have to think about what colors make up the tone that you're trying to get. So it's going to make you better at color mixing. You'll be a better painter and a better sketcher for this. You're just naturally going to get better color harmony in your picture because you're not going to have enough colors to choose clashy or discordant colors. You have to kind of mix it from a limited palette, so everything is going to match just by default. And like I mentioned earlier, it lets you try out a new supply without a huge investment. It can also be more fun because it's less overwhelming. You have less colors to choose from, so you're not going to sit there and hem and haw for too long. And then you'll also be able to remember what red you used and what green you used because, well, they're right there. So there's no chance of picking up the wrong color and putting it in by accident. Now, I will say there are also some cons to using a limited palette. The biggest con is that it's going to take you longer to paint your picture. I probably could have painted this in about 30 minutes, and it took me closer to 45. So there is a little bit more time there. You're going to need to know how to mix and layer colors. So if you're not really strong in color theory, this might be extremely challenging. Of course, it's going to make you better at color theory though, so I don't really think it's that much of a negative as long as you really want to learn how to mix. And like I mentioned before, you'll pay more per pencil if you buy them in a smaller set or open stock. And if you decide later that you want to buy like a full set, then you'll have some duplicates. Although I will say that your smaller sets of colored pencils generally have the most useful colors, so they tend to be the ones you're going to use up quicker anyway, so I don't think it's that big of a con. But you can see that there's definitely a case for using your limited palette. So here I decided that I would just use a piece of inexpensive Canson XL mixed media paper for this piece. I know that's an easy paper to find, and it's also very similar to your standard drawing papers in Surface. So if somebody was kind of joining last minute, they had whatever pencils they have and they have whatever sketchbook they have, I figured they probably could, this would be pretty similar to a standard drawing paper. It has a little bit of a tooth to it, but not too much, enough to hold the pencil, but it's not like super rough, and it's certainly not sanded. So I feel like this would be a lot more accessible to more people, and that's why this is the version I'm going to do for the Michaels class. But if you want to work on toned paper, or you want to try the Liquitex gesso trick and maybe prime some of your colored cardstock or something like that and follow along that way, or even just try it on your own time, I'll post the reference photo on my Instagram, so you'll be able to grab that. You totally can, and there will be a pattern on the Michaels listing. So when you go to sign up for that class, and hey, even if you can't make it live, you can feel free to sign up, grab the handout. It just lets Michaels know what sort of classes are interesting to people, and it helps them kind of plan accordingly. And it also helps me plan too. If I know a lot of people like a specific project or type of project, then I know to design more like that. So what I did here is I put a layer of red down, just a really, really light layer. You have to be careful when you're on a regular drawing paper not to clog the tooth, because if you get too much color down too early, you're not going to be able to adjust it because you will have kind of made it slick and waxy, and then the next colors won't stick. So I went in and I went over with white. See that band of kind of lighter red in the center? I went over with white because that is what you see the reflection on the tomato. You see kind of like a little reflection there. It's bounced up from the white cloth that I put the tomato on. And I wanted to show that on the tomato because I think it's a pretty simple subject and I think that makes it look a lot more interesting. Now for the really bright highlights that are up high that are kind of bouncing off the rounded top of the tomato, I tried to go around those with the red pencil because I didn't want to get that red in there. I wanted to keep that pretty bright. So I just kind of gave it a wide berth. Now I'm layering up some bright yellow here. I think it's called sun yellow or maybe just yellow. I'm layering that up in the top of the tomato where it's a little bit more orangey. And I'm layering some purple in the areas of the tomato where there's a darker reflection. And also like underneath the kind of hull at the top where the stem attaches because it's darker up there too. I feel like the purple is much softer than the black. And while I used black on the green paper, I think that it's just too much here on the white. I really needed to get more contrast when I was on the green paper because the values were kind of similar between the tomato and the paper. That's the other reason I decided I would go on white paper instead of the green. But yeah, I don't feel like I need that really dark black when I am putting my shadows in here. And that way, I like that because I can save it for those final details. Now, something that I notice with the higher end pencils is that, and this is also something I notice when I'm working on a sanded surface or a Liquitex gesso, clear gesso surface, is that I don't have to sharpen my pencils as much. You want to sharpen them for the details when you're doing the edges, but I find that especially on that sanded surface, you don't need to sharpen your pencil so much, and the higher end pencils don't need the sharpening quite as much. Now, other people may disagree with me, and that's totally fine. I don't use pencils all the time, but that's just my personal experience. Now, this is just a clear alcohol marker, and I'm using that to kind of dissolve some of the pencil and spread the color out a little bit. And that just helps remove some of the wax so that you can layer more on top. Just make sure your paper's dry before you do that. And it helps fill the tooth of the paper so you can get that nice smooth look. And with that tomato skin, I really wanted a smooth look. So blending all that down achieved both of those goals. Now the green is nothing like the green I'm going for in this set. It's got mallard green in it, which is this very vibrant, almost phthalo green, like on a mallard duck, you know, they're iridescent green feathers, that's that color. And so I needed to alter that so it would look a little bit more earthy like that green on the tomato vine. So this kind of brownish ochre color, that is, and I apologize that I don't, my eyesight is not the best, so reading the tiny printing on the pencils, I often will just describe the color because yeah, I'm not I'm not so great at reading those tiny little names, but it's only colors in the 12 set, so it's pretty easy to figure out what's what when you're following along. I'm also using some brown in there to tone down the green. I could use some red in there to tone down the green, but I don't have a huge amount of space to mix in that little stem area, so I don't want to go in there with too many different things. I find that I actually switched blender markers because the other one had a brush tip and it was just really kind of soft and unwieldy. So I went to this one that has a bullet and a chisel because they're both hard tips, so they can press the pigment around a little bit better, and the bullet tip won't let out too much ink, so I won't end up with any fuzzy edges, which is kind of nice. I also decided to soften the bright highlights a bit with a blender pen. I should be able to go over them a little bit more with a white pencil, but I can also use a white gel pen if needed. And that works out really well. So you don't have to use that, but if you have one handy, it's really great to have one on hand, I guess. If you have one handy, have it on hand. And then for the fabric, I'm just using a very light pressure on this black pencil because there are no grays in the 12 set, and I just this is white fabric, so I just want to put the shadows in. Now, I should have left it just like that, just with a little bit of the pencil and the shading, but I did decide, and you'll see this in a little bit, I did decide to go in with a blender pencil and spread out the pigment a bit, and I regret that. I think it made it look too harsh. So I just want to say this out loud that in case anyone's working ahead or they're watching this, I don't think that using the blender pencil on the fabric, where the fabric is supposed to be kind of soft and matte, was a great idea. That's great on the tomato because the tomato is supposed to be shiny and firm and smooth. So it looks great capturing that effect. But on the fabric, I regret that I do that in the future. But yeah. Oh well. That's how you learn though. You try things and then you see how they come out and you decide whether you like that look or not, and you'll know for next time. So there is no failing in art. You either learn or you succeed. You succeed the first try, everything's great, or you learn. Now here I took the kneaded eraser and just kind of blotted my fabric towards as it got further away from the tomato because I thought it looked a little harsh and I just wanted it to kind of fade off. And now you're seeing the where I'm going in with that sharp black pencil. And for this, I will make sure my pencil is sharp because I just want to put in kind of really fine details and fine shadows. For a pencil sharpener, my recommendation is this a Jar Link pencil sharpener that I found on Amazon. It usually is around $20 and it will take 6 to 8 millimeter wide barrels. And I like this because I can use my Derwent pencils, which are 8 millimeter, and then I can also sharpen my Prismacolor, which is 6 millimeter, and the Derwent Chromaflows, which are also 6 millimeter, I think. But it takes almost all of my pencils. The only pencils I can't sharpen in that are my Brute Finish squares and like the super jumbo ones that I think they're generally made for novelty or for kids or whatnot. But that's on my table all the time. I rarely break a lead with that. Sometimes I do. I mean, if you dropped a pencil or the core is shattered, that's going to happen no matter what. But even if I do break a lead in the pencil sharpener, I can usually push it through with another pencil and clean it out and it's ready to go. So it has given me no trouble. I've been using it for a couple of years and it's pretty affordable. Sometimes there's even coupons on it, and then it's coupons. What's a coupon? Sometimes there are even coupons on it, and it makes it even cheaper. So I'll try to remember to link that down below in case anybody is in need of a pencil sharpener. Generally, though, any electric pencil sharpener that fits your pencils is going to work. I've had other ones that I like a lot, but they're just not big enough for the Derwent pencils. So I also like that the Jar Link one is really fast. And I don't know, maybe I have poor sharpening hygiene or something with handheld sharpeners, but I always seem to break my pencils in the handheld sharpeners. So the electrics just kind of take out that variable, and I have better results with it. But yeah. Now here, this is also something I regret. I shouldn't have gone in with the white pencil to add highlights because what I ended up doing is blending in with the black. I did touch up with a little bit of white gel pen just to bring out some of my highlights. That's optional. You don't have to do that, but I think it does add a little bit of sparkle and looks nice. But yeah, that's totally up to you. And if you want to do that, great. If you don't, that's fine too. And that pretty much does it. Now here you can see what I told you I regretted, the going in with the blending pen, which is just alcohol. It's like clear alcohol marker ink in there. So after I did that, I was like, oh no. So I needed to soften that a bit. So I took my Gamsol and brush and I just tried softening it out a little bit, which helped, but then I don't know. I think it looked better before, before I added any solvent or any marker, but it looks fine. I mean, you can decide for yourself what you prefer, and that's a great thing about art. We can all do our thing. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. You'll find info for signing up for this free class in the video description. And if you have any colored pencil tips you want to share, leave them in the comments section below as well. I am not... I usually don't use colored pencils on their own. I'm more likely to use them in conjunction with other media. So if you have tips to share, I would love to hear them, and I'm sure other folks in the community would as well. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye!